Well, if you can't tell by now, there's a giant hole inside of this car, and we need to fill it. Starting with this hole right over here. So luckily I saved you a bunch of time and I already made this piece to fit. Luckily, it's fitting in there pretty good. I just got to get this thing zipped in there, welded on, and that should be one hole fixed. Maybe. Okay, so stick with me. I know this is a long video. I really try to condense it as much as possible, but it's long for a reason. I wanted to include all the problems and all the solutions that I came up with to fix said problems, because this could have easily been edited down into like a minute video and make it seem super easy, but that's not helpful. I want to show you what I actually had to do to make this work in the real world, not just on the internet. Okay, so we got this little patch done in here. We got a little bit more patchwork to do before we can get the floor pan in here, and I gotta do a bunch of cleaning up. Let me show you. So as you can see, there's gonna be a little gap right there that I'm gonna have to fill, as well as a gap over on this side, but we'll get that figured out once we get this piece out. So I need to clean up all these spots here where I've got a little bit of rust and stuff that I just need to clean up. I have a few spots where I drilled all the way through, so I need to make some patches there. So we're gonna have to cut all this stuff out. So kind of have the same story on this side over here. But obviously I need to clean this thing up a little bit. There's a couple spots where they've been cut from when the previous guy did this thing. He kind of chopped part of this thing off, which is not great, but yeah, we're just gonna try to zip that together and fix that up. And then we just need to clean up this side over here. There's a couple spots where it's a little bit bent, so I'll work on bending those back straight. And yeah, just basically cleaning up this entire thing. All right, well, let's get this thing cut up.
First thing I did was cut up this old piece of metal. It was stuck on there and such a pain in the ass. Sometimes you just gotta rub a little elbow grease on it. And then I went and cleaned up the rocker panel with a wire wheel in one hand and a grinder in the other. Then I went and plugged up a bunch of holes with my welder, man. It was a pain. One thing I learned from working with metal is that metal is a lot like the love of a woman. You just have to use the right tools to get her to open up. Sometimes you can't jam a grinder in a torque box, but you can get a die grinder in there. Sometimes you just have to think outside the torque box. Next I went and sanded away all the rust from the rocker panel. I hate that silly rust. Rust can suck my ass. Take that rust, you can't ruin my day anymore, because I turned you into dust. Man, that's a nice cross. Remember, sometimes all you need is a grinder in one hand and light in the other. Don't think about all the pain in your mind, just focus on the grind. I'm cutting silly shapes out of steel, so I take some cardboard and trace these silly shapes. Cutting cardboard sure is fun, man. Don't think about the last 10 years, just grab that grinder and make more of these silly shapes. Cut that steel with a cutting wheel and tear out through those memories. Cut by cut, you'll get closer to feeling again. Piece by piece, you'll end the pain. Day by day until it ends, you'll pick yourself up again. I might not be the best at this, but at least it fits. I guess it's time to weld these suckers in. Tack by tack, I forget all my problems. I'm focused on the task at hand. My anxiety slowly fades, and I'm left with a mediocre piece of metal. Hell yeah, brother. Well, that's the first step of many. If there is one thing I learned, it's that working on metal can make the voices a little quieter.
So now comes the fun part of trying to get this box all the way out from inside here with all this crap in the way and get it into this car over here. So have you ever tried to put a cat inside of a cat carrier? You know how they like try to fight you the whole way through? They like to scratch and bite because no matter what, they don't want to go in there. I've never met a cat that enjoyed being inside of a cat carrier. Well, that's kind of what this piece of metal is like. It doesn't want to go inside the car. It's a big pain in the butt. Luckily, I had my dad's help and we were able to get it in there. But man, it can be a struggle. I never thought I'd see the day that there'd be a floor in this thing again. This is actually kind of bizarre, but so far it's in there, it looks pretty good, and it's fitting okay, but we definitely have some things we need to work on. So the first major issue that I have is this gap on this side here, because it's basically not even fitting all the way up against this piece. So you can see this side's actually really good. There's a few little gaps and it's mainly just from an air hammer. So I can fix all that, level that out, no problem. But I discovered what the actual issue is. So it's just under 9.5 inches from the rocker panel to this cut right here. And when I go from the piece itself to the cut, it's about 9 3/8. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing on this side here. So when I go from the rocker panel to here, we can see it's right around the same spot, 9.5 inches to the cut. So when I'm measuring from the piece itself, we're looking at like 9 1/16. The only other sign that told me something was off on this side was when I put this down, this crease is not lining up at all. I mean, everything else does, it's lining up everywhere else, but as soon as you get to this crease on this side, it's just off. Meanwhile, the side over there fits perfect. So I think there really is just something with this side, maybe whenever they bent the metal or something that's just off. I'm not quite sure what, but I'm gonna have to correct that. So I'm gonna have to add basically 1/8 of an inch of material to that side so it actually fits properly. But then we should be pretty good because it's fitting fairly well everywhere else. Up here as well, it looks pretty decent. There's a few spots that I might need to work on just a little bit, but it's pretty good overall. So there's this weird little lip here. I'm not sure why that's there and it's not on this piece here. Could just be a difference in manufacturing, but I'm probably just gonna have to level that out a little bit. So on this side, we kind of have the same thing. We got this weird little dip here, so I may have to level that out. But there's this weird hump in the firewall, and I'm not sure exactly why it's there, if it's important. I could probably just hammer this out to fit, and then it'll be fine. Right now, I get my whole finger underneath there, so it's not ideal. But most likely, this whole tunnel is going to have to get, banged out to fit whatever the hell we put in here. Because I'm still not quite sure exactly what engine and transmission that's going to be going in this thing, so most likely the tunnel is going to have to get modified in one way or another. So the other piece that's going to be kind of a pain is we're going to have to fit this for the 1-inch cut in. Most likely it's just going to contour from here to here, but I don't know the exact angle until I get the pieces for this. So once I get the new wheel wells, I'll be able to measure all that and do that. I'll probably do that when I do these ones, but that's not going to be this video. That'll be probably the next one. So another cool fact about this single piece floor pan is that it actually came with replacement tops to both of the torque boxes. So I'm actually going to end up replacing those, which is good because that one over there was just a little bit too rusty. I was trying to fix it and I probably could use it, but I would much rather just put in a new piece of sheet metal. I mean, it's just sitting in a bag right over there. But before we go putting in those torque box tops on there, what I need to do is trace out all the spots where this thing sits on the underside where the frame is, just to make sure that everything's lining up good, so when we go to drill all of our holes, we're gonna have like a general outline of where everything is. So ideally, I would have a scribe that I would use to cut this and basically make like a good line, but all I've got is this black Sharpie that I'm gonna use on this black panel, so yeah, that's real smart.
You know, one thing you don't really think about when you're doing this stuff is all the metal dust that gets everywhere on the floor. And so when you're rolling around, in a tank top on the ground, you're just getting all this metal just kind of rubbed into your skin. It feels really nice. It's actually like a really good exfoliator if you ever have problems like that.
So you can see there's still some gaps there, but don't worry about those because we're gonna end up drilling some sheet metal screws in there to kind of help pull all the metal together. So that way when we go to weld these things, it's all gonna be nice and tight.
But now comes the real challenge, which is trying to get this floor pan out in one piece by myself. Now, I ended up trying to get it over this window. I had it rolled up like way too high. I needed to roll that thing down more. I don't know why. I think it was stuck if I remember correctly. But no matter what I do, doing this thing by myself, it's a pain. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to figure it out either way.
Okay, so I actually went and got one of these punchers from Harbor Freight. And the tool seems fine from what I can tell, but I ran into one major issue. And when I go to use this thing, it works just fine. See, pokes a hole right through it, but the problem is the hole is really, really small. You can see just how small it is. I mean, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch maybe, so it's just not big enough for what we're going to be doing. I need about 5/16 or 8 millimeters. I found one on Amazon that says it does it, so we'll see. It's definitely more expensive than Harbor Freight, but at the end of the day, it's going to save me a lot of time because if I have to drill all those holes by hand, we're probably going to be drilling well over 100 of them, and yeah, I don't feel like doing that. So what we're going to do instead right now, we're going to go ahead and put the tops of the torque boxes on this thing. And yeah, just do what we can today while we can and wait for this thing to arrive. So when you look at this one, you can see that there's a little bit of pitting in there, but I treated everything with acid and it's pretty decent. I think it'll be okay. But when we look at this one over here, you can see that the pitting is far worse. I mean, it's just rusted pretty bad. And we got this slice all the way through. And because it's got this like split in here, there's been water that's been getting in there and all kinds of problems. So we're definitely replacing this one. I want to see what's underneath, and we'll let that kind of determine whether or not we end up changing this one out too.
So I recently got a cordless angle grinder, and I've been using it a lot, but I'll say that the one thing that I'm really not a fan of is going through battery packs. I went through about 6 of them on this torque box alone. Now, I'm used to using a quartered angle grinder because those things you can just go all day. Like, I have a Makita that was like, it lasted me forever. It just recently died not too long ago. I love that thing. But ever since switching to this cordless one, it's convenient, but it's also not, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I'm not quite sold on it yet.
Well, that was a total pain in the ass. So I got this thing knocked off, and like, honestly, the backside isn't really all that bad. So I'm really not too concerned about that one. Especially after what a pain in the neck this one was. Okay, so this is the joy of China parts, but this is clearly the new piece from China. This is the original. First thing that I noticed is that it's actually a little bit short. So it's off by just like, it's a very slight amount, but it's still something. And then especially when you come over here and you look at this plane right here. Okay, so I got it up against this flat stock and you can see the gap a little bit better. I'm gonna have to basically make it fit to where it's completely flush. So this piece here is actually really caved in. This is another reason why I probably shouldn't use an air hammer. To give you an example, this is how bad it is. You can see how it's caved in there pretty bad. I'm gonna have to pull all that out, and it's just not great. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some tacks on there and start yanking this thing out.
So what I ended up doing is I got these studs and a slide hammer off of like Amazon, I think. I ended up just welding them on there with a couple tacks, and then use the slide hammer to just kind of pull the metal out. And then I kind of like cut it back, grind it back flat. And I mean, it does a pretty decent job. Like, they sell toolkits for this where you can get like a little welder with it and it does it all itself. But I just bought the little sticks and welded it on myself. It was way cheaper.
Okay, so you can see that it's fitting like way better. It's way more flush now. So yeah, so that should fix a lot of those issues. So the next thing I got to address is this edge here. I clearly need a little bit more material. So I'm probably just going to take some from the old one and put it on here. And then also we need to weld a patch into here. So, progress. So I think what I'm going to do instead of using the old piece is what I'm going to do is use the driver's side piece that I'm not going to end up using. I'm going to cut along this line, basically get a nice little piece that I need. And then we're going to bend it to fit here and then weld it all together. And then we should have that extra like 1/8 of an inch that we need there. So yeah, this should be fun.
You know, hindsight being 2020, I probably didn't have to destroy this perfectly good torque box top. I probably could have used another piece of metal that I had laying around that was scrap, but this just seemed like one of the most simple and easy solutions, and sometimes that's the best, because I had it on hand and I wasn't going to use it anyway. It just, sometimes there's a part of my brain that goes, well, what if you would have saved it and you could have used this later? But like, whatever. I didn't, it's done. And now I've got like a fixed side for the passenger side. So you know what? We're not going to worry about it.
Okay, so it's sitting on here pretty good. I got it fitting pretty dang flush. You can see along here, it's looking really good, really nice and tight. As well as over here, I got this curve matched pretty well. I definitely had to use a hammer a lot and get these clamps on there to get it in there just right. The other thing I need to do now is do the little patch panel down at the bottom right there. And then we should be good to weld this sucker on there after I drill a few million holes. But anyway, let's get the new panel on.
So I don't know about you, but there's something really special about working on a car late at night. I don't know why, but like as soon as the sun goes down, it's like there's this part of my mind that just opens up and becomes creative, thoughtful. I get to like this place of like, okay, I get into the zone. It's like I can finally think. And I think the reason is because once it gets dark out, I don't have anybody relying on me for anything. Nobody wants me for anything. Nobody needs my help for anything. I can just work on what I'm working on undisturbed. But the problem is that a lot of the work that I'm doing on this car is extremely loud. Like, it's not something that I can do in the middle of the night because I'm going to end up getting a lot of complaints from all my neighbors. And I'm not that guy. I'm not trying to be a pain to my neighbors, you know?
This is really becoming the painting tree.
But I think in the ideal world, I would have my own chunk of land where I had a nice little workshop where I could work on this thing in peace whenever I wanted without disturbing anybody.
So here's something I'm really proud of. I've been working on getting this tiny little piece to fit in here, and it actually fits really well.
It fits better than it looked, okay? I mean, it actually fit in there really well, and I actually was able to weld it in nice and smooth, just so that way we had a nice clean surface to weld the new torque box to.
So I ended up using some acid inside these places here because, as you can see, it's pretty hard to get in there to make sure that there's no rust. And it got in there and it treated it pretty well. You can see because this stuff turned black, it's basically going to seal anything that's actually in there that's rusted, and it's going to convert it so that way it doesn't continue to rust. And then we'll just paint it really good so that way we don't have to worry about this thing ever rusting out on us again. The other spots over here that I did, I got a couple little spots where it was just like really light pitting, nothing too crazy. I sanded it all down with a wire wheel, but then I ended up hitting it with the acid, and that also just converted any little bits that I didn't see, just to make sure that we're not gonna have any rust as we paint this thing. So now I'm just gonna shoot everything with a weld-through primer just to make sure everything's protected and we don't have any more bare metal. And then we'll move on to the next step, which should be the torque box.
So when it comes to this Steal-It stuff, I've been using it for a little while now, and I gotta say I like how this stuff applies. I like how it sprays. It hardens pretty well. The issue that I have with this stuff is when it comes to preparing for welds. So when I'm doing these spot welds, I'm left with like a bunch of drill holes, and essentially I'm supposed to scrape off all of this Steal-It. Usually I try to use like a wire wheel or something, but sometimes I can't get it all out really well with a wire wheel, so I have to go at it with like a drill bit to try to make sure I get it. And if I leave like just a little bit of this Steal-It in there, I end up with porosity in my welds. Now, this could be an issue with me and how I do it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. It's highly possible. But I've noticed it consistently since using this stuff. Whereas before I was using that POL number 2, the like copper spray, and that seemed to work just a little bit better. Now, I'm not 100% sure why this would be, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a mystery to me.
So luckily, while we're waiting on this paint to dry, I actually got my new tool in. It's the punch that I ordered a while back. This one's a lot bigger than the first one that I had, and it seems to be working pretty good. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to pop it on there. Just going to pop that, and then now you get an idea. So now you can definitely see the difference between a cheap Harbor Freight one that was only about 7/30 seconds, and this one cost me about $120, but that's an 8mm or a 5/16 hole. And it seems like there's plenty of space between that and the edge, so we should be pretty good with this. So hopefully this thing's going to end up saving me a lot of time. So I've already shown this book before, but it's worth picking up. It's about 30 bucks, I think, on Amazon. Put a link. It shows all the welds and exactly how far it has to be spaced. So if you see there, you can see just how far it has to be spaced on that cross member. It's got all the information right here. So it even shows where it connects to the rear trunk part. You can see all the little welds, and then also exactly how far they need to be spaced. It shows exactly where it needs to go on the torque boxes. And then also over here it'll say the exact spacing and everything like that. Here's another shot of the torque boxes, exactly how it needs to be welded. All the details right there. More details on the welding for the torque boxes. Again, all the info's right there. So this is how far they have to be spaced for those side panels. All the information right there. If we end up using the seat buckets, this is what they look like. This is where all the welds go. And that is all the information right there. So that book is probably worth it every penny. I mean, it's 30 bucks, but it's going to tell you everything you need to know if you're trying to do this completely OEM. I'm probably going to make a couple more holes, make a couple extra welds just to make it extra strong. But we should be good even just following that book. So let's do it. So as you can see, any of the spots up here where there's an edge, it's going to be real easy to get with a punch. So it's going to save me a lot of time in those places. But in places like this, where it's on the inside, I'm going to have to drill that out by hand. This is part of the frame rail. We're going to have to drill holes on both sides of this to make sure we can attach this to the frame rail. We're going to have to do that on both sides, and then also down here where we have an outline of where the other frame rail is. This part here is the little extra cross member, and we're going to have to drill all those holes because there's no way to get a punch on them. But now anything on this edge over here where we got this right here, that we should be able to get with a punch. So even if it's only going to cut down the work by half, it's still going to speed this up quite a lot. So let's get to drilling.
So when it comes to drilling these holes, I gotta say, like, this shit tore up my shoulders. Like, I already don't have the best shoulders as it is, but like doing this, I swear I could feel like my rotator cuff just starting to split apart. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with drilling, but I think it's also like these awkward angles, and because it's flexible, I had to like hold it in a weird way to try to drill through. Not to mention that I'm using some cheap Harbor Freight drill bits. Like, I really need to upgrade and get some carbide bits. Like, I really need to just spend the money. But it's just so hard to justify spending 80 bucks on a set of drill bits that I'm probably going to end up breaking in one way or another. Like, I'm not very nice to my tools. I tend to destroy them. I'm really, really hard on them. That's why when I find a tool that I actually use and it actually lasts a long time, I'm really happy to have it. Because, like, this air punch, I mean, I did probably like 100 holes in a matter of like 10-15 minutes. I mean, it was incredibly fast compared to using a hand drill.
So I gotta say, this tool saved my butt because it prevented me from using this tool as much. Because, yeah, I mean, it is just a lot of holes that you gotta drill on this thing, and that punch helps a lot. The next thing that I need to do is address these little winglets over here on this side, because this edge here, like this piece, is like, what was it? It was like 1/16 of an inch too short. So I need to cut a new section of metal, weld it in, and move this out by just a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do next. So here's about the clearest example I can show of the difference between the two. If you look here, there's like this little edge right here where this is kicked out by about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe something like that. Where if you look here, you can see that it's almost flush to this edge. So we're just missing that little bit that goes along here to extend this out just about 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to end up doing is matching the size of this side to the side over there, and then hopefully this thing will sit flush up against the frame rail.
I think the hardest part about welding is actually the preparation, because getting this piece to fit properly was actually kind of a pain because of how small it was. Now, on a bigger piece, it wouldn't be too bad, but because this thing's so small, I have to be very careful with the welds, as well as making sure that when I'm grinding it, I'm not cutting my hand off. Like, it's a little bit of a pain on these smaller pieces. But once I finished welding up that piece, I ended up using a paint stripper I got off Amazon. I think I paid like $15 for like a 20 pack. The thing that's awesome about these things is that when you're grinding through all the paint, it's not taking off metal underneath. It's primarily burning up the disc that you use as you use it. So it's really just stripping through all that paint really, really fast. It works pretty dang well.
And this is why I can't wear white. I mean, it is just, I'm destroyed. But anyway, I got this thing nice and prepped up. The black paint is all pretty much stripped down in all the places where it's going to be welded on top of. So I'm going to end up putting some weld-through primer on there, but I'm not going to do that until after I test fit this, because we got to make sure that those extensions we put in there is going to fit properly. But before we can do that, we got to get the torque box on. So yeah, I guess that's where we're at. We're putting the torque box in. So yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Torque box. We got all this stripped down basically to bare metal where it's going to be sitting on top of the other piece. Eventually, we're going to need to go ahead and put a weld-through primer on here. But since we're still test fitting this thing, we need to make sure that it's going to fit over in this corner where we put this extension, because I want to make sure that this fits good now in case we have to do any modifications and pull it out and whatever. But before we can do that, we need to go get that torque box in, because right now it's just an open space. So yeah, I guess that means it's torque box time.
So to answer the question that's probably on your mind, I probably should have supported this frame rail a little bit better prior to doing all this, because there's a chance that it could have shifted a bit from all the heat from welding and everything else. I'm not too super worried about it because of the way that this is all connected everywhere else. But at the end of the day, it just needs to get close enough, because if I need to, I can make adjustments after the fact. Now, luckily, everything lined up where it was supposed to, and it looks good. So I'm not too worried about it.
Alright, so I ground down the welds where the floor pan's going to sit, because now what we need to do is we need to figure out how it's going to fit in here. And we're going to line everything up over here along this piece here, because there's some spots where it didn't quite fit right. So we're going to go ahead and check that. And we're also going to check in this little corner here where we had that big gap before. So I'm going to go ahead and try to finagle this thing in here and see what we got.
So even though I'm getting a little bit better at getting this thing in and out of here, I still make mistakes every now and again. You'll see why.
And I just broke a whole bunch of stuff. Like, check this out. This freaking thing just fell all the way off and landed on the ground, and now I've just got all these little Dremel bits everywhere. So that's gonna be fun to clean up. But I got this thing in here. Some of the fitment is kind of a problem. I got to try to fine tune this a bit, because that corner over there, there's still a gap. I'm not sure why, so I'm gonna have to take a look. But on the plus side, all these holes are lining up really well, so everything's looking good there. All the holes over here are looking really good. So yeah, I just got to address that corner. And this is why we wear good boots. Holy shit. Look at this. Fucking chunk of metal just stuck in my shoe. That would have hurt. Okay, so what I found is right here, I'm hitting right on that part of the torque box. So there's a chance that it's a little bit out of whack where it is. If I think if I make a cut here, I'll be able to slide this over just a little bit. but it's not gonna make up for that gap. Okay, so I know this looks a little bit crazy, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking this and I'm measuring from the wall in several points. So that way I have a mark where I'm not gonna be cutting, so I know from this point, I need it to be 3 inches long to make it flush here. I'm a little bit short on this corner up here, but I don't wanna worry about that too much because I still have to cut off this and I don't know what that curve is gonna look like till we get the new wheel wells in there. So for right now, we're just gonna worry about this piece here, move it over, and then hopefully it'll fit better.
So one thing I've learned about taking this thing in and out of the car is that it's freaking huge. Like, I've got this thing pinned between the workbench and the car about 1,000,000 times now. It's a lot of fun.
That is no joke. I do not like taking that thing in and out, and I gotta do it probably another 2 or 3 more times.
But it is kind of nice being able to stand up and work. I don't have to like bend over or anything. It's kind of nice. I basically just ground down this edge so I can get a nice measurement, so that way when I take my scrap piece of metal, I know exactly what size I need to fit in there. Now a lot of it's just kind of finagling it into the shape that I want. Like, I don't have like a perfect shape, but I just kind of grind it till I get where I want it. And then I just tacked it in place just to kind of hold it up and ground it back down so I had a solid piece of metal to work from. Rechecked all my measurements, and then I took my piece that I cut off earlier and tacked that thing back on. And then hopefully, if all is well, it'll fit pretty nice. Of course, that's after we go ahead and try to finagle it into the car again, realizing that I flipped it over 3 times just to get it into the right position. It's not fun getting this thing in and out. I know I've said that a lot, but I'm going to keep saying it.
Okay, so this thing's fitting in here pretty good now. There's still a little gap near the wheel well, but I'm going to address that once we go ahead and do it. Okay, so I know this may be kind of hard to read, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking a measurement from here. It's like 2 inches from where that frame rail is, so we'll figure out what the difference is. And then I got right here to the edge of where that piece is on the wheel well before the curve starts. So I'm gonna just basically go from here to here and extend it. Since I don't know what this is gonna look like, eventually I'm gonna have to actually take away and this whole piece is gonna kind of bend in, but I don't know what that radius is yet, not until we get the new piece. So for right now, I just wanna make sure I have this up at a good starting point. So I'm gonna have to cut this lip off, or at least cut up to about here just to kind of move it out of the way. And then we'll weld in that new piece right here, and hopefully that'll fill that gap, and then we should be good.
So this is just another good example as to why it is that working on these things can be kind of finicky, because no matter what you do, pieces like this do not come perfectly fitting right out of the box, and almost every single piece that I've gotten has had to be modified in some way or another. Like, if you want it to fit good, it's going to take a little bit of modification.
So I'm excited it fits almost perfectly. And it seems to be following this curve pretty well. Eventually, I'm gonna have to taper this in, but I mean, I can do that once that's in there. So far that looks good. This side's looking good. Everything's looking good here. Obviously, I still gotta tighten that up, but fitting well. Okay, so this thing has been racking my brain, and I've got this weird gap between the frame rail and the floor pan that I've been trying to figure out just what I'm gonna end up doing with it. Turns out I measured everything just to see, and my measurements were okay, but they weren't great. I could use to bring it in a little bit, so I came up with a little idea that I think is going to get it done. Let me show you what I got. Yep, that's just a ratchet strap wrapped around it, and I've got it tied all the way under, so you can see it all the way through, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it up, and hopefully we'll be able to take care of this gap that we got right here, and it's pretty much the same thing on that side over there. You can see over here it's a very similar gap. So it's not much, and I could technically probably just hammer this over, but I really don't want to do that. I want to make this thing fit properly. The other thing is I found over here that this piece here is actually hitting on the frame rail on the underside. So I'm going to have to actually flatten that out because that could be affecting it. Sometimes you just have to use what you got. It's making some weird noises though, I'll tell you that. I don't want to do more than that. That seems like a lot. So the front part here we're looking at, looks like 54 3/4. Back in the back, which is technically not the back of the front of the frame rail, but it's close. We're looking at like 55 1/4. If I go all the way back here, we're looking at like, it's about 55 1/2 in the rear. So technically I should be measuring all the way up at the very front, but I don't have access, I can't do that. So we're still within the spec. So we're good, and now that I'm looking at this, it's tight, like it's super tight. So here's the gap now. You can see that that's flush. I mean, it is on there. I can literally hammer this flat and we'll be good pretty much all the way across. On this side over here, it's very similar. There's a couple low points I can see. That's from using an air hammer that I'm gonna definitely have to pull. But for the most part, these are really, really good. So yeah, that's not an issue with pulling this. That's an issue with there just being a low point in this metal. So already marked it, as you can see, and I just got to pull it out just a little bit. This is the part I don't look forward to. Tight, probably shouldn't have had that between my legs, but anyway, yeah. Let's go ahead and get this pan out and see what we can do.
And what I meant by that was, let's see how many times I can swing a hammer before I destroy this perfectly good piece of sheet metal.
Okay, so I know what it looks like. I get it, but yeah, it's flat now. It may look a little bumpy, but it's very flat on the underside especially. So it should have enough room where we're not going to hit anymore. I did the same thing on this one over here. Similar situation. This one looks a lot better for some reason. I don't know why that one got so messed up, but yeah, it's a little tuckered out. Okay, so as you can see there, it sits a little bit below this frame rail, and I think that's part of the issue. So my thought is what I'm going to end up doing is taking a little cut like through here. We'll lift this piece up a bit and then kind of fold this in and then weld it together. And that should help level this off, because right now it's just a little too low here. I think where it's hitting over here is okay. It's a pretty good position. And I think by bringing this up, we should be able to level it out pretty good. But then that's going to make some changes to this arch. Now this arch over here is a little bit low. Part of that could be the new panel. Part of it could be this. I'm not 100% sure. But what we're going to do is we're not going to fix everything all at once. We're just going to do little by little. So we're going to fix this little low point here. And then we're going to fix this high point here. Because when you see this, you can see that it's sticking up like just a little bit more than what it should. So my thought is we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to cut here. We're going to hammer this down to level it off. And then we're going to need to make a filler piece in between there. And then hopefully we should be able to get these points taken care of. Then we can address this weird hump here that's missing. Not sure exactly how we're going to do that. I may have to make another slit and then kind of hammer it out. I'm not sure. We're going to kind of just go at this and see if we can make it work.
Man, by the time I actually get this firewall built, it's probably going to look like Swiss cheese. I mean, the amount of cuts and holes that I've had to put in this thing just to make it fit properly is kind of insane. Luckily, most of these things are going to be hidden on the underside of the vehicle and also underneath the transmission, so I'm not too worried about it.
But I also made some adjustments to this cross member here to try to level everything off. There were a couple low spots like over here where it was hanging, and now I've got it kind of lifted up a little bit. I made an additional cut over here just to make sure that I can kind of move this thing. I kind of hammered it out a bit, so now it's fitting a little bit better, but I'm going to have to really get that pan in here to really see how it fits. So I guess that means I have no other choice but to go and put this thing back in here yet again. I'm really getting tired of this.
And the sad part is this is definitely not the last time this thing is going in here.
Okay, so I've been messing with this thing for a hot minute, but let me show you where we're at. So I got this spot formed most of the way up, so it's looking pretty good. There's still some spots that are a little weird because they're just not quite fitting 100%, but I got it really, really tight. Like here you can see where it's kind of bubbling a little bit, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's nice and tight. Most of these spots you can see like it's right on there. So doing these screws really helps to pull everything together and kind of keep it in spots where it needs to be, but man, it is a pain. Now underneath here you can see where the screws are just kind of coming through, but it's pulling everything really nice and tight. You can see how tight all these gaps are. That's taken me a ton of hammering, but we got it pretty good up here. But yeah, you can see just how tight we got all this. It took quite a bit to get it this way, but it's looking way better than what it was before. Now this torque box over here, it's bent up a little bit. You can kind of see right there. I'm going to have to lower that thing just a little bit because this is hitting right up here and it's not laying flush on the side. So we're going to have to level that off a bit, but everything else is looking pretty decent. Still got some work to do over here. I got to pull all this down with some screws, but other than that, not too bad. But I definitely don't miss being this close to the bottom of the floor pan.
Luckily, I won't have to be for very long because this thing's got to come out yet again. There is just no replacement for a good sledgehammer and a torch. I mean, this thing made such short work of this, it's not even funny. After we got this thing leveled out, I ended up pulling out some of these low points that we had on this rocker panel, and it did a really good job of trying to make sure that everything was going to be nice and straight later on. But it's just, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get these things evened out and done right. But I wanted to make sure that no matter what, this thing was going to sit really good and we weren't going to have any gaps.
So now it's looking a lot better. Like it was really dipped in there, and now it's a little bit more level. I did the same thing over here, basically just trying to even it out, and then I also finished up over here, got this thing pulled out just a little bit more, just to make sure it's going to sit well. Luckily this side over here is really good. There wasn't really too many low spots. I don't think I hit this side with an air hammer like I did the other ones. But now what I need to do is I need to make some cuts to make some pieces for these little slots here and then weld those up so that way we can make sure they fit real good. because trying to weld this from underneath is going to be a pain in the butt.
You know, I still wish that I knew exactly what that hump was for. Like, was there originally like maybe like a clutch, like slave cylinder on that side or something? Like, or is it just a weird shape on the transmission? I really have no idea, but I am kind of curious if any of y'all know.
So I actually found my old POR 15 can. Turns out I have just enough to finish up this little inside area here. I did spray paint here originally, but it didn't quite stick very well. And there's some spots in here that I couldn't really get too well. And I think the POR is going to do a much better job of keeping this stuff from rusting, because like I have it inside here and it's tough. It ain't going nowhere. So yeah, let's go ahead and put that in.
So I will say that POR 15 has actually been like a really good thing that I've used on the inside of a lot of these frame rails. But the one downside that I've noticed about it that I'm not a fan of is when I'm actually welding, this stuff tends to light on fire. And like it burns for quite a while and it releases a horrible chemical. Like I always wear a respirator with this, but like it's some nasty stuff. And that's part of the reason why I didn't use it on the underside of the floor pan, because I really just want to use a good weld through primer on this part, because I really don't want any of that POR 15 anywhere near where I'm going to be welding, because I really don't want this stuff catching on fire. I don't want it to like lift from underneath, any of that stuff. And I think that the weld through primer it's just going to work good for what we're doing here. After I let the POR 15 cure, it turned out really good. The inside of this cross member looks really, really good. It's solid, it's hard, it's not going anywhere, and I think it's going to do a really good job of keeping this thing from rusting in the future.
Okay, so hopefully this is the last time that I have to do this. We're going to go ahead and put this floor pan in, and hopefully everything lines up and everything fits like it should. I may have to do a little bit of manipulation here and there, and then we should be able to weld this sucker in. So, see how it goes.
I can't tell you how good it felt to finally get this thing in for the last time. I don't ever want to have to take that thing back out.
So I got this little hump here that's just not quite laying flat. And you can see right there where I've got it screwed down, but it's kind of bubbling up on the edges there. So what I need to do is I'm going to probably end up cutting this thing to get it to lay flush. And then hopefully it'll also tighten up back there as well. So I don't know. We're just going to do what we can, make this thing fit, and then get it in.
So I probably could have just done this from the start and it probably would have fit just fine. I don't know if that hump is meant to be there or not, but I don't think it really matters for me because this thing isn't going to be original anyway.
Okay, so after a good while of making some cuts and making this thing fit a little bit better, it's nice and tight. I think this spot here I'm going to hold down with the clamp whenever I go to actually weld it, because a lot of these sheet metal screws, they've just pulled right through, so it's not really holding anymore. So I'm going to have to get this held down with a clamp. Not a big deal, but everything else is holding really nice and tight. I made a couple little relief cuts right here where I'm going to be welding anyway, just to get it a little bit more flush, and that seemed to help out right there. I've got everything nice and tight in here. It's looking really good. Everything's flush pretty much in most of these spots. I got it all the way up here. I've got all the way around this part up here. It's all nice and tight, and luckily I got one of these like really good long reach clamps, so we're going to use that to kind of help tighten this up as we go. Those are going to come in really handy. All these joints are really flush. I've got them sanded down, so we got all the primer out of there, so it's like basically bare metal everywhere. If there's any spots, I'm going to clean it up as I go. So I haven't screwed anything down in the back yet because everything down here may move a little bit as we're welding all this stuff up here. But as of right now, it's all fitting really well. I just have to kind of push it down and clamp it down. I'm going to do that. Same thing on that side over there. It's all looking really, really good. Now you see I got this thing really nice and tight. Everything's sitting really, really crisp. So even over here, it's all nice and flat. We've got tons of screws in this. There's a couple spots like right here where it's a little bit out, but I think using this clamp here is going to help to tighten that thing up as we go. Everything else is looking really, really good. Now for like this spot here, I'm going to put a screw through here to kind of tighten all this up. So you can see we're all fitting pretty decently. I'm going to make sure this is really tight when we actually go to weld it, but yeah. It's looking really good. So this is really the main spot that I'm a little bit concerned with, is because these things are not exactly flush. They're really close, but I think when we use the clamp to kind of help hold it on there, I think we'll be doing pretty good. But yeah, so this is like the one problem area that I'm a little bit worried about, but I think we'll figure it out. Good news is this torque box is now fitting in there just as good as the one on that side, so I'm pretty happy with the fitment here. And with a couple of screws, I should be able to have this thing nice and tight in there, so it's fitting really nice. Well, I guess it's time for me to go ahead and weld up about 100 holes, so let's get started.
So if you were to ask me when I first started this project how long I thought it would take to do a floor pan in this thing, I would have said, you know, it depends. If you work full-time and say you're only doing this on the weekend, maybe you only get 1 day a week to work on this thing, it might take you a month or two to do, just because you only have that little bit of time, and even in that day, you're probably not doing it the entire day. You might only have a few hours. I'd still say that you could probably get it done in about a month or two, depending on how fast you are at this stuff. But little did I know that it was going to take me 10 months to do. And that's not because of 10 months of working on this thing constantly all the time. It's 10 months because life always finds a way to get in the way of our hopes and dreams, okay? Like, when I first started this thing, I thought it was going to be really simple. I thought I was just going to get in there, make a couple cuts, make this thing fit real nice, weld it in, and be done. But little did I know that I was going to have to replace the torque box, that I was going to have to POR the frame rail, that I was going to have to do all this other prep on the firewall, like all these little details of fitment and getting things to fit just right that you don't normally plan for when you're doing these things. And not to mention the fact that I had to weld well over 200 holes easily, not including stitch welding some of the cuts that I had made, as well as trying to modify all this thing to fit properly. Like, just the welding alone took a lot of time, because also it's like awkward positions. Like, you're in these really weird positions trying to do this because of where it is. I can't really be on top of it in the way that I want to. My vision is not the greatest, so stack that with a welding mask on top and then a breathing mask to kind of prevent some of these fumes. Like, it gets to be kind of difficult to do this in these really tight scenarios. Now, it looks really quick and really clean, and like this was really simple, but like this was a period of a few days worth of working on this thing to actually fully weld it in, because I can only do a little bit at a time. Like, that's just how it is. Life tends to do that sometimes. People need us other than just our cars, you know? And don't get me started on these sheet metal screws. Like, I don't know what it is if I bought like the weakest ones possible, but I kept breaking them off into these pieces. Like, there's so many times where I had to go and drill them back out just because they literally, the heads would just pop right off. So they weren't the best. I think I got them at Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those. Next time I'm going to get better sheet metal screws. Just know that, like, if you are doing this, like, get some good sheet metal screws, because the ones I got, no bueno. Those things just pop right off. And the other thing is that sometimes you find pieces that don't quite fit right, but you've already welded half of the thing in, so now you have to make adjustments and make it work. Like, there's so many times where I've had pieces that were just like a little bit off. I'd have to make some cuts, kind of bend it out of the way, reshape it, make it fit, weld it back together. You know, like, there's just things like that that come up that tend to take a little bit longer than maybe what you were planning. You're thinking, I'll just go in, zip these welds together, done and done. But even with all the test fitting and getting everything fitting right as you're welding, things tend to move a little bit. So there always is like this constant adjustment that you got to do while you're doing this thing. But it's just like one of those things, like everything else, you kind of learn it as you go, and you get better at it the more that you do it. Like, I was not able to do this kind of stuff from nowhere. Like, I started with a basic stick welder that didn't even have gas, and I just kind of built up from there over the years of building cars and making different things. I just kind of learned as I went with it. Like, I'm not a professional welder, but you know what? I can stick two pieces of metal together, and I know how to read a book. So I guess that's kind of the moral of the story, is that even if you're unfamiliar with something, or you feel like you're uncomfortable doing it because maybe you don't have the experience, sometimes you have to push outside of your comfort zone and try those things, because the only way you get the experience is from doing. You're not going to learn how to do this from watching this video and then have the knowledge of how to do it. You actually have to go out there, pick up a welder, pick up a grinder, and practice and get good at this stuff. And I know a lot of you know this. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but just understand that, like, I didn't learn how to do this stuff from just watching videos. It's literally from going out there and doing it.
Well, that took way longer than I ever thought it would, but let's see what happens when we pop this off. Hopefully, it doesn't rip out all the welds. Here we go. Okay, that was really loud, but it appears that everything's holding pretty good. So now technically, if I was going to continue this thing, I'd end up putting in the seat brackets. There's one on each side. Luckily on mine, I've got all the things marked out here where the old welds were, so I can kind of line it up based off of that. I just don't know for sure whether or not I want to keep the original seats. It's kind of a toss-up right now, because I may end up putting in some racing seats in this thing. I don't know yet, so I'm going to hold off on putting these brackets in until later, because I may end up just having to make my own. We'll see. So one problem I keep running into is that I'm sweating when I'm working on these things, and I'm just dripping. It's leaking like out of this mask and getting all over my fresh spot welds, which sucks because then it creates surface rust. See what I mean? It's just like a lot of surface rust I'm going to have to grind back anyway. Luckily, I'm just going to take the grinder and clean these welds up. But like, yeah, when I'm in the middle of this, I mean, I'm just dripping sweat all over it. So I wonder if they've ever come up with anything to catch the sweat from these things, because I'm just sweating all over the place. Now comes the fun part of cleaning up all these welds.
So normally this would be the time to apply some seam sealer in here. I didn't do it yet because I don't know for sure whether or not I'm gonna have to modify this firewall yet, but it is what it is. For right now, we're just gonna paint it and cover it up as best we can. I actually got a new belt for my belt sander, and it actually works really well. It's one of these like 3M, it's like the purple belt. I don't know what they put in it, but it works way better than the cheap ones I got on Amazon. Like, paying for the name brand actually made a difference in this case, especially in some of these corners where I couldn't get anything in there but the belt sander, or I think it's called a file sander. Yeah, anyway, main point is the purple 3M thing is actually legit. Like, it's worth it.
So I got them all ground down pretty good. It's looking pretty nice. The good news is a lot of these welds look really good. They're penetrating just fine. I got them ground down kind of smooth. Eventually we're gonna have some like Dynamat over this, so we're not even gonna see these when we're done with it. Over here though, I noticed I had a few spots where I had some porosity, so I'm gonna have to actually grind those all the way down and re-weld them. Not sure why it happens. Sometimes just a little bit of dirt or something can get in there. Maybe there's like a little bit of rust or something back there that I didn't quite get, but for the most part, it's looking pretty good. All right, clean these things up a little bit, and now they're looking pretty good. So I'm gonna finish cleaning these things up, get a layer of paint on there, and then we should be pretty much done with this thing.
Okay, so real talk, I've had this car since 2018. It's been in my garage since 2019. It's been here so long that for the last 3 years, my garage door has been broken, and I haven't been able to fix it because I haven't been able to move this dang car for so long. Like, I can't even get to it. I can't move it because what it's mounted on right now is it's balanced because of all the measurements I was doing with the frame, and I wanted to make sure it was level. So now I'm just kind of stuck in this predicament where it's like, do I want to wait another 10 years before I have a garage door? Like, how long do I want this project to just take up space in my garage before I finally decide, you know what? I'm over it. I'm over it. Like, financially, the amount of money it's going to take to finish this build would break me. I mean, it would literally break me. I don't even know how I'm going to be able to do this in the future, but like, yeah, for right now, I'm just going to focus on just doing what I have, work on what I can, and I may or may not be getting a new project in the near future. So, yeah, keep a lookout for my poor financial decisions.
Well, that is what I call a hole successfully filled. It may have taken me 10 months to do it, but here we are. It's a filled hole. Now, when I started this thing, I had a beanie, jeans, and a long sleeve shirt, everything, because it was cold out, because I started this thing back in November. And now it's September, and I'm just now getting this thing done, and as you can see, we're in Texas, so it's nice and hot still. But yeah, sometimes life just tends to get in the way and throw things for a loop, and sometimes we get in our own ways. It just seems to be how things go, but fortunately, we managed to get this thing done because we just did little by little. Even if I could only get out here and do just a little bit at a time, we managed to knock it out. So in the next couple of videos that we're going to be doing on the Mustang, we got to be working on these wheel tubs. We're going to be doing quarter panels, the taillight panel, all that, basically the whole back half of this car. I don't know exactly what's going to be next, but it's going to be one of those things. Well, thanks for watching. I'm glad that you stuck around. If you made it this far, you're one of the real ones. And if not, that's cool. I'll just sit here and talk to myself. But anyway, I hope you have a great day, and I'll be sure to see you in the next one.